You're listening to the Agent and the Fan podcast with sports agent Chris Leible and fan Lou Columna.
Welcome, everybody, to the Agent and the Fan podcast. I'm the agent, Chris Leible. I'm here with my man, Lou Columna. He's the fan, Lou. I know. It's been a rough time for you.
It's been rough.
We should just get into it here. Of course, the Agent and the Fan podcast is a show that we air. I'm an agent and a longtime MLB player agent. You're a longtime Yankee fan. We're giving our perspectives every week. There are times when, things kind of come out, and obviously some stuff came out in the wash that affected you in a very profound way.
Very much so.
The Yankees, who you had very high expectations for, you picked them to win in 7, I believe.
I did.
I picked the Dodgers in 6. I believe I was closer. But I gave the Yankees a little too much credit. But Lou, obviously the Yankees lost.
Yes, they did.
You didn't get a World Series champion tattoo. Yankees 24 champion tattoo, right?
I did not. I did not.
Good.
I was close. You
got to think positive that you didn't get that. But here we are. The Yankees lost a very tough series for them. What are your thoughts?
It was. I mean, listen. It was tough. There's no way around it, right? I feel had we won Game 5, I think, we would have had a really good shot at Game 6, and then the Game 7, who knows? We probably lose because it's tough to come back from obviously 0-3, but I just felt that it was just a comedy of errors and just it was just everything. It just everything snowballed, and it was kind of like our season in a nutshell in that one inning. Where we saw that game. You saw the best of the Yankees, you saw the worst of the Yankees. I felt that, I mean, to be honest with you, when Kike got the hit in the 8th inning, in my mind, in my heart of hearts, I was like, this is over. Because I said, I know he's going to score. I don't know how, but I know that run is going to score. And sure enough, they scored 2 runs, and we know what happened. But it was devastating, especially coming from, a Judge, right? He's not a Gold Glove outfielder, but he's a solid outfielder. You expect him to catch those kind of balls. You had an error by Volpe, who is a Gold Glove winner, and then you have at first base. I mean, take Rizzo, Cole, whichever. Cole, Rizzo, a Gold Glove first baseman, and Cole, who's a good athlete. It was just one. I mean, we can play 1,000 World Series and we won't see that again. It was just crazy.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, the World Series has been around a long time, and that was probably the worst moment in the history of the World Series. That sequence that you just described. I, as a coach of young kids, I would have lost my voice screaming if my 11U team did that.
Yeah.
So
before we go there, I agree with you, and the only one I agree with you in is the Rizzo Cole play. That one, the Judge one.
No, I mean, if my center fielder on my 11U team, which is newly 11U kids, mostly 10-year-old children, would have missed that ball, I would have been very upset with them.
No, but I agree. But
okay.
I mean, I was upset. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to minimize it. I was upset because I'm like,
okay. Well, that's a fly ball that a 10-year-old should catch, and Aaron Judge missed it.
Without question. But we've also
it happens. It happens. Okay, it's part of the game.
And then the Volpe play, that's become like, I don't want to say it's not his signature play, but he's really good at cutting that out at third.
I've heard that from more than one person. Again, I think to me, somebody who's played a lot of ball, I think he pulled the string on that. I think he 100%. he didn't want to throw it away, and he kind of babied it to the target and didn't get it there. And that's what happens sometimes when you do that.
Yeah.
And I got to disagree with you. The play at first base, that was the hardest of the plays, in my opinion. That ball coming at Rizzo, and I'm going to defend Rizzo 1,000% on this one. That ball coming to Rizzo, that's a no-win play. It's hit softly with a lot of spin. When you get that ball as a first base, I play first base, you're not going to end up, you're supposed to field it, right?
Yeah.
And he did field it. But you almost have to play it back, and he did play it back. The fact that a major league pitcher didn't cover first base is a major problem. And
I agree.
I give this guy, Garrett Cole's a great pitcher, okay? There's no question about it. And this guy, you could take what he's done in his Cy Young season and the things that he's done in the game. He's a great pitcher. There's no question about it. And even what the guy did to stand on that mound, end the inning after that would have ended the inning 5-0, right? They ended up scoring 5 runs that inning. Okay. That guy went back out there the next 2 innings and pitched his ass off, to be quite frank, and give him a lot of credit because most people would have folded under those circumstances. He didn't. He battled, and he battled as hard as long as he could. But that does not excuse the fact that he needs to cover first base, just like Edwin Diaz did in an important game with the Mets a few weeks beforehand. And at the end of the day, and again, we could talk about the World Series, and we probably should talk a little bit more about it and maybe come back to the subject. But to me, PFP, pitchers fielding practice, is something that's been a staple in spring training for decades. Okay. It's something I don't think that is focused on as much as it has been in the past. And you could say that about a lot of things in the game as far as fundamentals of the game go.
But, okay? let's get into that.
Okay.
Why is that?
Well, that's a great question. I do not know the answer to that. I think the world has changed. The game has changed. Baseball is always a microcosm of the world. I think the basics of humanity have changed. Just like the basics of baseball have changed. But I'm going to say this. Analytics are extremely important in the game. I am 100% on that. I am somebody who kept stat books when I was a kid. I did them when I worked in the Mets front office for the managers. Okay. I did things that were ahead of their time, quite frankly. Okay. And they're very, 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 very important. But the human element to the game is very, very, very important still, even though it's been minimized quite a bit, in my opinion. I think the balance there has to be a little bit more than one or the other. Okay. And I think, in my opinion, okay. And I feel like for whatever reason, we take things for granted when at the end of the day, reps are the most important thing. They have to be done. They have to continue to be done. They got to be done over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that doesn't matter if you're 10 years old, 11 years old, 20 years old. Major league players, I don't think they're doing it. They're not doing it on the field. I don't see it anymore. I used to go to games as a kid, watch batting practice on the field. Even when I worked in the Mets front office, when I'd be at the game, every game, all day at the field all day and go outside, they'd be outside working on different things. Now you don't see that as much. A lot of things are guys looking at their iPads and watching things. And certainly the advancements of the game are tremendous and outstanding and just beyond what anybody could have thought of, 20 years ago. But I think they're not going back to those things, the reps and the basics of the game. And then when you have things like that go wrong, you see that, and that's a problem.
So do you think that because of the advancement of technology, the advancement of technology in sports, that they've more focused on that than being on the field, right? But at the end of the day, they still got to catch the ball. They got to throw the ball. They got to hit the ball. You have to be on the. And this is what's frustrating for me. Yes, about the World Series, but I agree with you with. And just in general, where you have to be on the field, and these little things you got to do these little things. And sure, So sure enough, cost the team in the World Series big time.
No, I'm frozen on the screen here, but yeah, there's I think you can still hear me, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So look, I couldn't agree more. Now, obviously, there's 24 hours in a day, and as I said, the world has changed, and baseball changes right along with it. But in my opinion, this is a major issue and I think you do see it a little bit in the playoffs where the game kind of goes back to the old style of the game, where you're seeing guys bunting over instead of looking for a 3-run homer or things of that nature. And I think this is very, very, very important to me. And I think everything does run in cycles. And because things are cyclical, I do think teams that will go back, can go back and do things and do the fundamentals the right way will win. And I think you might see a change at some point. But right now, it's a really strange time. And I think the fact that you saw a team like the Yankees, who have a huge payroll and certainly some great players, and certainly can't diminish, like you said, Aaron Judge, because he missed a fly ball, because it happens, and it's just the way it is. I mean, nobody's perfect. They're not robots. They're human beings, and human beings can make mistakes. But the fact that you're seeing the Yankees make errors, and I can't, as I said, look, it happens to the Yankees in the World Series.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be any team, really, if you think about it. And I think certain teams are a little more fundamentally sound. And I think when you see these teams, like even of the near history, Jim Leland, for example, guy like that, who was an old school manager, he just did things the old school way. His teams were always ready and prepared. And I don't think you see that as much today. And I think that's something that needs to
change
and at least come back in some form more than others.
For sure. I tell my kids all the time, when they play ball, I don't mind physical mistakes. What drives me crazy are mental mistakes. And those were two monumental.
Yeah, I mean, look at the image of Garrett Cole pointing at first base, like to tell Rizzo to go beat Mookie Betts. There was
That reminds me of David Cohn arguing at first while the runners are circling.
Yeah, something similar. I mean, in a way, I get what you're saying. I just think that it's just unfortunate that it happened to the Yankees, but I think it did shine a very, very bright light on a big problem that the game has. Whether anybody cares about it or not, I don't know. I know a lot of Yankee fans care about it now because of what happened. But look, at the end of the day, I think that's, to me, something that I would love to see change in the game, because I feel like the game isn't played the right way all the time anymore. I think certain guys play it the right way. I think certain teams play it the right way at times, but I do think that needs to change. I think this particular World Series, just to go back to the general of the World Series, obviously game one was a heartbreaker for the Yankees. A great game in general, if you're a baseball fan and didn't have a horse in the race, or a Dodger, obviously, but as far as like the Yankees go, very tough loss for you and your brethren. But Dodgers win the second game and a bullpen game. Which again, that's another thing that it's hard to believe in this day and age that's what we're down to, is watching middle relievers go. Piece together a game in the World Series for a team with the payroll the Dodgers have. Now,
exactly.
That said,
but here's the thing, though, just to touch upon that, that's being glossed over now because of what happened with the Yanks, right? But had the Yankees won that game 5-0 or 5-2 or 5-3, they've wasted that bullpen. Then they go to California, they go to LA. Who knows? Again. You have Yamamoto. He's dominated the Yankees, but who knows?
Listen, but I think the bullpen games look, the Dodgers were in a tough spot. The Dodgers lost Stone, who had a great year for them. They lost Glasnow, who's a great pitcher. Okay. So that was a tough spot they were in. So they lost a couple of key guys and Kershaw. I mean, so that's three legit arms that, that could have been in that spot. So the Dodgers are trying the best way they can. It's just hard to believe that there wasn't a better option, but there really wasn't at the end of the day. And the Yankees didn't make them pay for it. And,
Yeah.
the Mets, kind of did in the one game, but I think that, that's another whole story. But that said, at the end of the day, the Dodgers were the team. They were the best team. They won, deservedly so. I think the Yankees, and again, we talked about it. The Yankees did what they had to do to get to the World Series, and I give them credit for it. They were the last American League team standing, but this was a weak year for the American League. And I'm sorry, with due respect, because they were a good team. The Guardians beating up on the White Sox and the Twins beating up on the White Sox. And,
I see that argument all the time, and I've been seeing it a lot, obviously leading up to the World Series. I personally, we've had this conversation before, I don't buy that, right? Because you say, Baltimore is better than Kansas City, for sure. Top to bottom, they're better. Kansas City beat them. You know what I mean? Detroit, Cleveland.
Again.
All these teams, that were on par with the Yankees or better, they had an opportunity to beat the teams that were in front of the Yankees.
Yeah, no, and again, but baseball is baseball. But baseball is baseball. Anybody can beat anybody in baseball. It's, again, if Alabama plays McNeese State in football, they're going to beat them 100 out of 100 times.
But that's baseball, one game. But in a series, the better team for the most part. Maybe.
But I don't necessarily agree with. I don't necessarily. I mean, I agree with that to an extent, but sometimes it's just the hotter team that wins, right? And we see that a lot. We've seen that a lot over the past 20 years.
And by the way, the Dodgers next year could be in the playoffs and get knocked out in the first round, as they've had before, right? So, to your point, it really is the hot team.
No, it's the hot team, but Lou, have changed. When the Dodgers and Yankees played their first 10 World Series or 10 plus World Series, they would win the pennant in the American League and the National League, and they would play each other, and that would be the end of it. There was no room for hot teams. It wasn't the 2007 Cardinals. There's 2006 Cardinals sneaking up and winning out of nowhere, or the Giants teams in the mid
or the Rockies
2000s. Or whoever just coming at it, getting hot at the right time type of thing. Or the Phillies a couple of years ago, against, getting to the World Series. Like, there wasn't any of that, okay? Yeah. It was the best team won, and then they played in the World. The two best teams played in the World Series, and it was the regular season really meant what it does. Look,
but I don't know that. Number one teams were in the World Series, though.
The number one teams were in the World Series. Period. End of story. Now, would I change that? I mean, it would be fun to see that. But I think there's no way that's ever coming back. I mean, there's too much money. And to be honest with you, there's nothing, to me, it's a lot of fun when I come, when you turn the TV on at noon on a Tuesday and you got a playoff game going on in a must-win situation, no matter who's playing in it, even if it's not your team or you have no horse in the race, it's fun.
It was a fun playoffs.
No, it was fun. I think the Dodgers just had too much firepower, and even though Ohtani got hurt and I think was definitely limited towards the end, their role players really stepped up. Whether it's Edman, Hernandez, guys like that, they did a great job, and those guys were the difference to beating the Mets and then beating the Yankees as well. So,
but I give them their props begrudgingly, of course. But listen. It is what it is. We'll just have to wait till next year, which leads me to our next topic. What are these two teams, in your opinion? What are they going to look like? Because they're going to be completely different teams for many different reasons. But starting off with the Dodgers, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, there's obviously going to be a lot of changes. Dodgers have some injuries. You got to look at a guy like Walker Buehler, who really stepped up in the World Series. He's a free agent. What's going to happen with him? Kershaw sounds like he'll come back again, which, I think would be the way it should be. But,
that's a while.
The injury, Glasnow and Stone are guys that, what's that?
Teoscar is a free agent.
Teoscar, did the 1-year deal. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep him around. Obviously, the big three are locked in, and that's it was funny. Even when you're watching the game, you're almost always calculating when the way they're doing the batting orders now. They're not spreading the lineup out. It's another change in the game, but you're counting down. You're going like, oh, the Yankees need to get 6 more outs. But hold on a second. If they turn the lineup over to Ohtani, then Betts is up, then Freeman's up, and I think obviously he won the MVP. But Freddie Freeman having that time off and getting healthy was probably the difference at the end of the day in the series. But when you have a guy like Freddie Freeman, a player of that caliber, all around player, team leader, certainly a positive force in the locker room and on the field at all times. I mean, that's a difference maker. And Teoscar, in that crew, added to that crew, and then like I said, those role players performing as they did, it was the Dodgers did what they had to do. I thought the managerial decisions throughout the series were very interesting, I will say, in a nice way. Don't agree with them, a lot of them. I thought there were a lot of missteps, just like I thought in the round beforehand with different teams. So I think it's a new world. You're seeing the game being played differently, just like in the NFL or even college football now. When it's 4th and 3 and you're on your own 40-yard line, you go for it now. It's almost a surprise when you don't go for it because the analytics say to go for it. And you're seeing these things in baseball as well. I was kind of stunned when the Yankees intentionally walked Mookie to get to Freddie Freeman, especially when you talk about analytics, looking at what he had done in that situation against similar type of pitchers. And Nestor obviously hadn't pitched in quite some time. And so that was a very obviously an important decision.
Well, let's just say there was no Tommy Lasordas or Billy Martins in this World Series, man.
No, I would definitely say that. Those days are gone. But look, I think that you gotta, at the end of the day, you got to give the Dodgers the props. I think the Dodgers, to answer your question, are always a team to keep an eye on. You hear their name come up with every player. They're always in on everything. They have the money to do it. They're not afraid to spend it, obviously. Even these trades that you're just like, wait a minute, what they just went and got, like Glasnow, for example, you heard that the Rays were looking to dump his salary or whatever it was. Then all of a sudden, like, last thing you're thinking is the Dodgers because they already got Yamamoto and Ohtani. You're like, oh my, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, here's Glasnow with the year, just like, whoa.
So here's an interesting question regarding the Dodgers and just what you're talking about. Do the Dodgers get emotional and say, for example, hey, Teoscar, he was a great part of this World Series team. He's a good player. His agent's gonna be like, hey, listen, this guy won your World Series. He was a key integral part of your team. We want X. And you as the agent know. And we've spoken about this before. You're going to go where the money is, right? Will the Dodgers say, "Hey, listen, we want to keep him and overpay for this guy just to have him, on the team"?
I don't think the Dodgers will overpay for Teoscar. In the example you're giving, I think they'll offer him what they think he's worth, and if they don't get him, they'll move to the next guy. Just like I think that's basically how they signed him in the first place.
Yeah,
because I remember he was a guy that they were talking about with the Mets at one point.
Exactly, but my point being is now you have a proven commodity in the playoffs where this guy is going to perform. You may get that next guy, and you may get the same deal next year from some other guy who we can't think of right now. But that guy may not perform for you in the World Series. So that's kind of like my take. Like, you have a proven commodity. This guy's already proven he can play and win.
No, look, the guy's a terrific ball player. He had a great series, good postseason, and a good season overall for the Dodgers. I had no doubt he was going to. He's always performed well. I think, to me, as his agent, yes, I would try and max him out, but maybe there's another team that's going to pay him more than the Dodgers will, or maybe not. Maybe the Dodgers just say, hey, this is what you're looking for. We'll give it to you. That's the Dodgers do have that have that benefit of being able to do that, where a smaller market team who hasn't shown to do it would do it. So he's a guy that certainly could end up going back there, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see him go elsewhere, and I kind of would expect him to go elsewhere. So I think that'll be interesting where that goes. I think you even heard Juan Soto's name come out with the Dodgers, and that that sounds crazy because of all the money they spent, but maybe because they did save money on Ohtani. Maybe that is something that they could look into and try and just keep building the dynasty in LA. It's certainly a possibility.
It's going to be tricky for them, right? Because this was something the Yankees did in the 2000s, which didn't work out for them. They obviously the 90s dynasty, they homegrown players, and then it got to the point where they started buying players like the Jason Giambis, those guys, and then Gary Sheffield's, and then you started building an all-star team, not realizing you need those other guys, right? So that's going to be another interesting facet of all.
Well, look, the Dodgers just proved it because they did have the superstars, but look who was the ones who got them over the hump. It was Edman and Hernandez and guys like that. So, baseball's a funny game. You got to find the right pattern, magic, and the Dodgers did a great job doing that.
I agree, but my point is, if you then try to field an all-star team, then you won't have space for those marginal guys, right? That's my point, right? Like if you go position by position, say, hey, I want, or this is an all, like let's say,
but no all-star team.
What's this guy? Edmund. What's his name again? The
Tommy Edman.
The Dodger guy. The
Tommy Edman.
Tommy Edmonds, right? You have a guy who, he's solid for you. But then you have another guy who plays his position, who's a free agent, who's a really good, not a superstar, but a lovable superstar. And you, the Dodgers, are you going to be like, hey, man, we got to get this guy? And then where you have Tommy Edmonds being like, you know what I mean? Like that to me is where it gets a little tricky. And again, I only say that because as a Yankee fan, I saw the Yankees do that. Like, reach for that.
But it's got to be the right chemistry, and that's why you have to have the right people at the helm, calling the decisions and pulling the strings the proper way.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that's what it comes down to. It's getting the right group into that clubhouse and into that locker room and onto that field at the end of the day with the right mix. And those are the teams that'll get there, because it is a grind and it's hard to win no matter what. And as much as I've said to you that the Yankees got lucky that who they faced to get to the World Series, it's a grind to get there, and to get there is a huge achievement and a huge accomplishment. But to win it is another level, because then you're going to have to beat somebody who did the same exact thing on the other end.
Exactly.
The Dodgers did it. And I won't say that the Yankees season was a failure because they didn't win as many games against the Dodgers as the Mets did, but I would say that they listen, they did a great job to get to the World Series. They did what they were supposed to do. They took care of the business they needed to take to, and at the end of the day, they put themselves in position. And really, the Freeman grand slam in Game 1, and then obviously the comedy of errors in the fifth inning of Game 5, ended up being their downfall. But you got to give it to the team for having a great year. And I think, as you said, the Yankees are a team that we'll see where they go and what they're going to end up doing. Juan Soto obviously is the one huge name, but there's a lot of other things that they need to figure out as well. And at the end of the day, I think we all know the Yankees will have their star players out there, whether it's Juan Soto or not. But what will they do? Who else will they bring on? And who will they add and who will they subtract to bring them back and put them in position to win another ring?
Yeah, that's gonna be. Listen, it's gonna be, and this is gonna be for our next show. But the Yankees have a lot of question marks coming into next season. This is going to be a really telling offseason for them. Who they sign, how they pivot, what is their opening day team look like? it's going to be a really fascinating offseason for many different reasons. We have a lot of solid to superstar free agents in this offseason. And so I think really you're going to see really how all of this shapes up. I don't expect it to be like last year where we waited for so long for these players to come off the board. It's not going to happen in a week, but I get the feeling that this is going to be a season where an off season where deals are going to be made at the winter meetings, and you're going to see players really kind of find their home, before January. I could be wrong, but that's my feeling.
Well, after last season, it'll certainly be something to keep an eye on and follow and see where it goes. I know you'll be doing that. I'll be doing it as well. Running out of time. I think we have about a minute left.
Miami Minute, baby.
Let me just get into it really quickly. I have a couple of things to talk about. Okay. When it comes to Miami and the University of Miami Hurricanes football team, we have a guy there. He wears the uniform number 1. His last name is Ward. First name is Cam. This guy is should be the Heisman Trophy winner. If he isn't, there's a bias against this man. The guy always keeps you in the game. You could be down by 70, and I would believe Cam Ward will lead them back to a victory. Cam Ward is him. He is the man. He should be the number 1 pick in the draft. He should be the Heisman winner. Listen, he's made a program that I have very bad PTSD from watching the Hurricanes lose games that they should have won over the last 20 years since the second dynasty ended. This guy, he puts all my fears to rest. He makes me feel better. He helps me sleep at night. I love Cam Ward so much. I can't begin to tell you. Another huge win. Big game coming up again Saturday. I want to give him a lot of credit. Cam, love you. Number 1. Number 2, I want to say something else while I have about 20 seconds of the Miami Minute. Miami Hurricanes basketball team, they lost a lot of their key players, a lot of great players. They were Final Four team 2 years ago. Last year was a disaster. Some injuries, some tough breaks, some bad things happened. They lost. I watched their first game. They are outstanding. They are being slept on by the rest of the nation. This team will go very, very far. They are 10 deep. They're loaded. They have veterans. They have young people, young guys. They have freshmen. They have skilled players. They have size. They have depth. They have a great coach. Miami Hurricanes basketball team, you guys are going to have a great year. That's all I got to say. Lou, thanks for a great episode. We'll talk to you later. Have a good week, everybody. Enjoy the show. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you soon.